Welcome back to How to Design, everyone, where today we're going to start building and laying down some general frame and shape for our build. This video is part of that mini-series within our How to Design episodes, where we're going to be building a factory from start to finish, and I am showing you my whole process. If you haven't seen the previous video and want some help coming up with ideas and a game plan for the factory you want to build, I recommend watching that video before this one. But with that being said, let's get into building, and I'm going to break this building segment into 3 parts so we can focus on one thing at a time, and hopefully that will make it a bit easier for me to explain. So to start, I personally like making an overall frame in regards to how we want the exterior of the build to look. And thanks to our work last episode, we have our pool of inspiration ideas that we want to use. And the main one I want to start with is this cool looking building. And there are a few things that I will take into account while building. One is I don't want to enclose the generators inside the building, and so I don't want to forget that when building. And then the second is when I start building, I want to keep an open mind and willing to expand and sometimes downscale some parts of the factory that we're building in order to fit things or fill some space. And right now I'm thinking about the room I have for walkways inside and the amount of space I'm going to have to design these walls, because I don't want to leave myself with almost no space in either of those categories. And the more I build, the less likely I'm going to want to go back and remove all that stuff I've just made, especially if I like it. So now comes the time where we just need to start placing some buildables down and see where it leads. Okay, so using the reference images, I want to try and put these triangles on the side here. And I've done some measuring, and I think this is where we would have to stop. And from this point to the end right here is 20, and from this corner to this corner is 15. So it's a 15 by 20, and we want to space out these triangles, hopefully so they look a bit symmetrical. So I'm going to change half this to asphalt and the other half we'll leave like that, so I know that this is the middle point. And then I'm going to paint these two black, so I know this is the middle point of this side. And these are just markers so I can remember kind of where we're at here, and I don't have to keep recounting. So I'm thinking I want this to be too wide or too deep for these little triangle things, and I have a feeling we're gonna have to raise this up a little bit. And this is something I was kind of afraid of because we don't have an 8-meter ramp. It's a little tough to get these vertical angles to kind of get over the refineries here. So looking at this, I have a couple options. We can raise the whole thing up a few foundations, which isn't exactly what I wanted to do originally, or we can try using the 8-meter tilted wall in layers, which is something that we can at least try out. So I'm gonna grab a blueprint designer. We're gonna grab a tilted concrete wall. And so if we try to place them on the designer like so, there is this little gap, which could be a cool detail, but I actually want this looking like one solid piece. And so I'm just going to layer these like this and make one kind of more dense piece and do it for a whole foundation wide. Okay, so I've made this and I've painted it black to hopefully hide as much of that fighting as possible. All right, so I'm gonna grab out this blueprint and we're gonna see what we can do with this. Okay, so doing that actually gave us plenty of verticality here and a lot more room to work with, which is nice. And the nice thing is once we get the first one done with blueprint mode, we can just snap it to the side and build them out like that. So now comes the time where I need to repeat this process for 3 more times, I think. Okay, so I've kind of set up this scenario to show you what I meant previously when I was talking about the moments when you run into a situation where either you have to settle for something maybe you didn't want originally, or you have to go back and delete stuff that you've already built and rebuild it a slightly different way. And this is one of those times where you think something will work out and then you miscalculate and these don't line up perfectly. And I think if I drop these by a foundation, they will line up just fine. That means I have to delete everything I already built. Now this is in blueprint, but it still does apply. And so I'm going to elect to remove all of this and redo it. But this is an example that it happens all the time where you build something and you might have to delete it for it to be exactly what you want. Okay, so I've added the slanted wall blueprints on both sides, and we are doing 2 deep here. And I decided to use these foundation rails to help line up and get some snap points for the blueprints. And this is also part of our frame for the roof. So now we have a couple foundations in height to work with the roof design, and this is slightly bigger than I initially planned, maybe by like 1 or 2 foundations, but I think this will work just fine because we can always move these generators over a couple foundations. That's not too big of an issue. So I think we'll be perfectly fine with this kind of frame. And this already helps us figure out, well, how deep our walls are going to be, where our foundation needs to go out to, kind of get our roof limit ready. There's a lot of things that this will help with, and I'm pretty happy where this is at already. Okay, so I've just finished doing the frame on the top side here, which is just connecting to each little support thing. And that's about all I need to do right now for the building. And the next thing that I want to look at is the foundation. And again, using some of the reference images, I have some ideas on what I want to do. And I think I want to come down a few foundations and then have some angled supports going down and in, but I'm not sure exactly how I want to do it. So we can just start with inverted ramps and shoot them in a little bit and kind of see what that angle is like. But that does seem quite harsh of an angle, and I'm not sure I want that. Another option we have that I really like using is pillars, because you can customize the angle and you can stack pillars side by side to make them look a bit more full. We can almost make them look like ramps in some way. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to do a couple different designs and see which one I like better. And this is what I was talking about with using pillars to make your own angles, because normally with foundations you can do up to the 4 meter, but with this we can do a 2x6 and get a much steeper angle. But again, that can be anything you want. You could go in one foundation and down 20. And after starting to build this, I'm looking at the foundation and actually thinking that I probably want to have something extend out a bit further, because I do have some ideas that I think will be really cool, and I kind of want to use this pillar design, but I don't really think it works super well here. But something we could do, instead of having these come in, we can actually have them come out a bit, and that'll create even more contrast when we decide to go into the foundation a bit as well. And so I think I'm going to try that and see what happens. Okay, so I have changed these to come out instead of in, which I do think is going to work out way better with some of the stuff that we want to do here. And then also, while I was making these, I kind of realized that it would look kind of weird if we only had these coming out on this side, so we're going to have to put them on this side as well. So I just measured the distance in between these two, which is 9, and then I placed one here and one here, and this was at the very end. So for symmetry's sake, I added another 5 over here, which mirrors that side. Now we may or may not use this, but I put it here as a reminder that this is the size we would need to keep everything symmetrical if we want to keep doing that. And like I said earlier, there's already a good chance that we move a couple of these generators onto this side, which means we'd use up a lot of that space anyways. So that might actually work out in our favor. So we'll have the ability to put our supports down over on this side as well, which is good. And like I said, when we started this project, I had an idea for a road to come on this side and attach to the building. And I think if we do that at about this height, right in the middle of these supports, that we can use some of that design idea we had and use that to support the road instead. And so those supports will then go into the foundation here. And so we'll have that nice little contrast of supports going in and out. So now all that's left to do for the foundation is kind of set up all these supports here, and then we can move to our third part, which will be our fuel generator area, as it is quite different. Okay, so after doing all the foundation stuff, we can move to the fuel generator side, and I'm going to at least relocate one of these lines, and I think I am going to fill this in, because we might actually want to move another line onto this side. I don't know yet. And we now have these 2 lovely supporting pillars here that can work great for some arches. And the only thing I know right now is that I want my arch to also be at the same height as this frame right here. So again, this is the point where we just start putting some buildables down and seeing what happens. So we can just use some ramps here. So it would take 7 ramps to get up. This angle is maybe not exactly what we want, so I'm gonna raise this up a little bit. And so now we're at 5, and I don't really like this angle at all. Okay, and repurposing our wall blueprint was actually pretty useful here. It allowed me to get a more vertical angle, which is kind of what I wanted. The only thing is I don't know if we'll actually keep this specific design. I'm trying to avoid designing and just getting a frame down and getting a visual representation of what we want for the build. So there's a good chance that I will want to change this because I have something in mind, but it is really part of detailing. So I think I'm just going to repeat this on the other supports here, get this frame down, and then we'll pretty much have all of the frame done. Okay, and with those arches done, that is pretty much all of the frame for the build all done. It may not seem like a whole lot was done, but this is kind of like an outline when you are coloring. All we have to do is sort of fill in with whatever colors we want, and those colors are different smaller designs. And that might not make sense, I don't know. But something I do want to stress is the more unique or kind of detailed your frame ends up being, the easier it can be to detail and fill that in and make something really cool. But that is gonna wrap it up for this one because this video is probably already pretty long. If you guys enjoyed this one, let me know down below. And in the next video, we're gonna start doing some of the detailing along with building out some of the aspects of the factory that we need, like maybe the road, and figuring out how that will align with our logistic floor and then the rest of the foundation, which might be the biggest hurdle we have left. I hope you guys have enjoyed. I want to finish this building before 1.0 is out, but I'll be trying to make these expeditiously. And if you guys want access to any blueprints I make that are not video specific, they are all on Patreon, and we will be doing save file uploads as well. We've already done a couple, and before 1.0 hits, I will be releasing every save. But that's about it for me. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.